Have you ever noticed how some people don't ask questions to understand you? They ask to control you. They come to you with fake curiosity, pretending to care about your side, your truth, your reasons. But deep down, they've already made up their mind. Their goal isn't clarity, it's power. They challenge your choices like a lawyer cross-examining a witness, not because they care, but because they want to twist your words and trap you in them. And the more you try to explain, the more they drain you. Your words become weapons in their hands. Like shadows that stretch when the light hits just right, they distort your meaning, your energy, your identity. You start to feel like you owe them something for just being yourself. But here's the truth. You don't owe explanations to those who listen just to misinterpret you. As the Stoics taught, real strength is quiet. It stands tall without needing to shout. Power lives in silence, not performance. So the question is, how do you protect your peace from people like this without guilt? Stay with me. The last one might just be the most dangerous of all. 1. You can't pour truth into a cup that's already full of lies. Let's be real. One of the biggest mistakes we make is wasting our breath on people who have already made up their minds about us. You try to explain. You try to clarify. You try to defend yourself with logic, honesty, even vulnerability. But it never lands. Not because they don't understand, but because they don't want to. Some people aren't looking for the truth. They're looking for confirmation. Confirmation that you're the villain, the problem, the one to blame. In their mind, you've already been cast in a role. Maybe as the selfish one, the failure, or the threat to their fragile ego. And no matter what you say, they won't let you break the script. Because in their world, perception is power, and they've already chosen their version of the story. Trying to explain yourself to someone like that is like shouting into a storm. You might be speaking truth, but all they hear is noise. Picture yourself talking to a brick wall, giving it your thoughts, your heart, your proof, and it just stands there, cold, unmoving. That's what it feels like to explain yourself to someone who's already chosen not to hear you. You're not in a conversation. You're in a cage match with someone's pride. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's your path forward. Don't get pulled into pointless battles just to prove your worth. Let your actions speak where your words are twisted. Because the right people, the ones who matter, they won't need a presentation. They'll feel your truth in your presence. And yes, it will feel unfair. You'll want to scream, "Why can't they just see who I really am?" But here's your answer. It's not your job to change someone's closed mind. It's your job to stay open, stay grounded, and walk your path regardless of who misunderstands it. I once dealt with someone who constantly misjudged me, no matter how much I tried to explain. So eventually, I stopped. I went silent. And I just kept living. And little by little, the truth began to reveal itself, not through my words, but through my consistency. So if you're wondering how to handle people like this, here it is. Stop performing. Stop explaining. Let them believe whatever makes them feel superior. Because your character, not their opinion, is the final word. 2. Don't hand them the knife and complain about getting cut. Ever tried to explain yourself to someone, only to hear your own words come back twisted, bent out of shape, and used to attack you? You thought you were clearing the air. You thought, if I just explain myself clearly enough, they'll understand. But instead, they took your honesty and weaponized it. They didn't want clarity. They wanted control. Some people don't listen to learn. They listen to collect. To gather words they can later throw back at you when it suits them. One sentence taken out of context. One joke exaggerated. one moment of vulnerability flipped against you, and suddenly you're being judged for things you never meant, never said, never stood for. It's like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. Every extra word you give them is fuel. What starts as a spark, a small disagreement, a misunderstanding, becomes a raging fire that burns your peace to the ground. And you helped build it, thinking you were helping. Seneca once said, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings." And he was right. Eventually, you stop feeding the fire. You stop explaining, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because you realize silence can't be twisted. Silence leaves them with nothing to use. And that silence, that's your power. Your restraint is your sword. I remember dealing with someone who always took my words and twisted them into stories I didn't recognize. I thought I could fix it by being clearer, kinder, more careful. But the clearer I got, the more they had to work with. And one day, I stopped talking. I let my silence speak. I walked away from the game. And once I stopped handing them the knife, they couldn't cut me anymore. You might be wondering, but what if staying silent makes it look like I'm guilty? Here's the truth. To people who twist words, you'll always look guilty. Because their goal isn't to see your truth. It's to maintain their version of it. So say less. Move smarter. Protect your energy. Your words were meant to build, not to be bent. So save them for people who listen to understand, not to destroy. Let your silence echo louder than their noise. 3. Don't water dead plants and wonder why they're not growing. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from physical work. It comes from emotional overexposure. You try to explain yourself again and again, hoping this time they'll finally hear you, hoping your words will be enough. But instead, what you find is silence, blank stares, or worse, more misunderstanding. You walk away not feeling understood, but drained. And this is the part most people miss. It's not the talking that exhausts you. It's the one-sidedness of it all. The effort you keep putting into people who have no intention of meeting you halfway. They're not listening to grow. They're listening to win. They're listening to keep you spinning in circles while they stand still, untouched, unaffected. Imagine pouring water into a cracked vase. No matter how much you give, it keeps leaking. That's what these conversations feel like you're giving away parts of yourself to someone who was never going to hold them with care. Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "He who indulges empty fears earns himself real ones." In modern terms, the more you pour your energy into things that don't matter, the less you have for the things that do. And here's the truth. Not everyone deserves your words. Especially not the ones who use them to tie you in emotional knots. At this point, you might be asking, but what if they think I'm avoiding the conversation? What if they say I'm running? Let them. People who are committed to misunderstanding you will always twist silence into guilt and distance into blame. But it's not your job to carry their confusion. It's your job to carry your peace. And sometimes, peace sounds like saying nothing, like walking away from the fight that was never meant to be won, just meant to keep you distracted. I've been there. I remember wasting weeks, months, trying to make someone see my side. Every conversation felt like a courtroom, and I was always on trial. I kept thinking, if I just say it right, they'll understand. But they didn't want understanding. They wanted to keep me proving myself. And when I finally stopped explaining, something strange happened. The attacks stopped. Because the moment I stopped pouring water into that bottomless pit, I had energy again. I could breathe. I was free. So stop watering dead plants Stop pouring life into people who treat your truth like noise. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. Use it to build, grow, and evolve, not to beg for validation from people who feed off your frustration. You don't owe explanations to anyone who refuses to understand you. Walk away, let go of the fight, and give that energy back to yourself, where it always belonged. 4. You're not the mirror. Stop taking blame for their reflection. Here's a truth that stings at first, but sets you free. What people think of you has more to do with them than it ever did with you. Their judgment, that's their burden to carry, not yours. People will label you based on their own fears, pain, and insecurities. They'll say you're too quiet when you're just thinking, too confident when you've simply learned your worth, too cold when you've stopped overgiving. But none of this is about you. It's about the lens they're looking through. And most of those lenses are scratched, dirty, and clouded by wounds they've never healed. Imagine a person standing at a window that hasn't been cleaned in years. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, the view is breathtaking, but to them, everything looks dull and broken. That's judgment. They're not seeing you clearly. They're seeing you through the cracks in their own experience. As Epictetus said, what other people think of you is none of your concern. And why? Because their mind is a mirror of their own inner chaos. If they're envious, your success will look like arrogance. If they're insecure, your silence will feel like rejection. If they're bitter, your joy will annoy them. They don't see who you are. They see what they can't face in themselves. And naturally, you might ask, but what if their opinion affects how others see me? It might, but here's the bigger question. Will you lose yourself trying to fix an image they created? That's how people get trapped, by trying to clean windows that were never theirs to begin with. You weren't born to walk around wiping down other people's projections. You were born to live in your truth, fully, freely, and without apology. I've dealt with someone who twisted everything I did. If I helped, I was trying too hard. If I said nothing, I was being distant. No matter how I moved, I was wrong in their story. At first, I wanted to explain. I wanted to fix it, but then it hit me. I wasn't the problem. Their perception was. So I let it go. I stopped performing and I focused on peace. Did their judgment change? Number, but mine did. I stopped giving it value. You don't control how people see you. You control how much space you give their opinions in your mind. Let them judge, let them assume, let them talk. That's their world, not yours. Stand firm in your truth and let their noise fade into the background where it belongs. 5. Don't dance when they play the devil's flute. Let's talk about a kind of manipulation that's so subtle, it often feels personal, but it's not. There are people who don't want peace. They want power. And the easiest way for them to get it is by triggering you. These are the ones who push your buttons on purpose, not to understand you, not to resolve anything, but just to get a reaction. Because your emotional reaction feeds them. They throw little jabs, twist your words, ask loaded questions. Not because they care what you say, but because they're watching for your explosion. That's their game. And your anger, that's their prize. Here's the truth. When someone can control your emotions, they control you. The more you try to explain yourself, defend your point, or argue your worth, the deeper you sink into their trap. They don't care about the facts. They care about the fire. Your frustration gives them life. It's like wrestling with a pig. As the saying goes, you both get dirty, but only the pig enjoys it. You end up covered in mud, wondering what just happened, while they're smiling because they dragged you into the dirt. And you might ask, but if I don't respond, won't they think they've won? Number, That's not how real power works. True power is silence, control, detachment. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you stop reacting, you stop entertaining their chaos. And guess what? They get bored. There's no fun in provoking someone who refuses to play along. I remember someone in my life who would poke at my insecurities, casually, cleverly. They'd say things that sounded innocent to others, but cut deep if you knew what they really meant. And yes, I used to react. I used to try to explain or correct them, but all it did was fuel them more. One day, I just said, "Noted," and moved on. No emotion, no fight, just stillness. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. When you stop giving people your emotional energy, you take away their only weapon. So don't dance when they play the devil's flute. Don't let them turn your piece into a performance. The strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who refuses to be controlled. Stay grounded, stay calm. Let them swing at the air while you walk away untouched. Because real strength isn't in reacting, it's in choosing not to. 6. Don't play the villain in someone else's script. There's a certain type of manipulator who doesn't shout, doesn't accuse, and doesn't openly attack. Instead, they whisper, they cry, they play the victim, and they do it so convincingly you start questioning your own reality. These are the people who hurt you, twist your words, flip the blame, and then act like you're the one being cruel. They're not looking for resolution, they're looking for sympathy. And the more you try to explain your side, the deeper they drag you into their emotional trap. One where you're constantly defending yourself, apologizing for things you didn't do, and walking on eggshells to avoid becoming the bad guy in their story. Here's the truth. When someone is determined to play the victim, they will always rewrite the script. You could bring facts, logic, and calm words, but they'll only twist them into emotional weapons. It's like playing a game where the rules keep changing, but only in their favor. You're trying to win with truth, but the game isn't about truth. It's about control. And the only real move? Stop playing. As the Stoics teach, your peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from detachment. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one believes it." And that's the key. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by stepping back, standing firm, and refusing to be cast as the villain in someone else's performance. You might ask, but what if they convince others I'm the bad one? Let them. The people meant for you won't fall for cheap theatre. And the ones who do, they were never interested in your truth to begin with. I once knew someone who did this masterfully. Every time I called out their behavior, they'd shift into sadness, saying things like, "I can't believe you think that of me." And there I was, comforting them for something they caused. Until one day, I stopped. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just looked at them and said, "I see what you're doing." And that silence, it shook them more than anything else I'd ever said. So let them play the victim, but don't audition for their story. Detach, disengage, and walk away with your peace. Because real accountability doesn't come through noise, it comes through stillness. And in that stillness, truth stands tall without needing to explain itself. 7. You don't owe receipts for every step you take. There's a silent pressure many of us carry, the feeling that we have to explain ourselves every time we choose peace, growth, or distance. The moment you set a boundary or make a decision that protects your mental and emotional space, someone will come knocking, demanding to know why, as if your life is their business, as if your healing requires their approval. But here's the truth. You owe no one a justification for protecting your peace. Not everyone is entitled to an explanation. Not everyone deserves access to your reasons. Some people will guilt trip you, act confused, or even accuse you of being selfish. Not because your choice is wrong, but because it inconveniences their control. They'll say things like, "Why are you acting like this?" or "What happened to you?" But that's not curiosity. That's entitlement disguised as concern. Think of your peace like your front door. At night, you lock it. Not because you hate the outside world, but because your safety matters. And when someone bangs on that door, demanding you unlock it, just because, would you? Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's your compass. If your decision is rooted in truth, in what feels right for your mental and emotional well-being, then that's all the permission you'll ever need. No debate, no defense. I remember when I finally stopped over-explaining myself to someone who constantly pushed my boundaries. The moment I said, "This is what's best for me," without any added explanation, they froze. There was nothing left to argue with. That's when I learned. The strongest boundary is the one you don't feel the need to explain. Because real strength isn't in convincing others. It's in knowing your peace is reason enough. You might ask, but won't silence make me seem cold? Here's your answer. To those who truly respect you, silence won't be taken as rejection. It'll be honored as self-respect. And to those who don't, no explanation would have ever been enough anyway. So don't offer receipts for every step forward. Just take the step. Let your decisions speak louder than your justifications, because at the end of the day, the right people don't demand explanations. They respect your direction. If this message spoke to something inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep building strength, clarity, and peace together.